Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Shintaro Higashi Show with Peter Yu. Today, we're going to talk about progression and fundamentals.
Yeah, progression and fundamentals in judo.
Yep.
This was a suggestion from our big sponsor, Levon. Thanks for your
Thank you,
support
Levon.
again. Thanks
Appreciate
again.
you.
And then
Yep.
we're gonna kind of dedicate this whole episode to
Yep.
a few of them. He has a lot of questions, good
No.
suggestions, but a few of them. So he basically wanted to know, like, what are some of the landmark skills, or like some kind of, how can you check if you're progressing in judo without looking at your belt color?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And another thing was like, what are some of the fundamentals in
Yeah.
judo, for different body types or different styles,
Yeah.
So we're
It could
gonna,
definitely
I
be
thought,
confusing.
yeah, they were all kind of related to each other. So we
Mhm.
thought it would be a good episode to combine them all and then kind of answer them all together.
Yep.
All right. So what should we do first? Okay. How about just start with the progression, like some checkpoints, I guess.
Checkpoints. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, first and foremost, right, you have to be able to do ukemi on the very, very basic level.
Right.
Standing, side, back break falls. But I honestly think it's a little bit overemphasized when people are like, you only teach ukemi for the first 2 months or they can't do it. Like, no.
That's so
Right? Give them
boring.
it's so
Yeah.
boring, you'll lose guys right away. And this is the thing, like being able to do Kemi by yourself doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to get hurt when they go down.
Right. Right.
It's more so important that the person throwing them gently lowers them down to the floor. That's
Mhm.
more important than anything. If you're picking them up with an ogoshi and then you're
Right.
decelerating, like floating them down to the ground,
Mhm.
when their hands are getting put out or whatever, it's like, yeah, no, tuck the arm and you can like guide them through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Actual, like, useful ukemi, not just like, "Oh, let's do 1, 2,
Yes.
slap the mats." Yeah.
Yeah, so like that is overemphasized. Doing that does not translate to being able to take good falls when you're actually getting bombed.
Yeah.
Because a good throw you don't see coming,
Right, right.
right? And if it's not
That's a good point.
ingrained, yeah, naturally, like quick, like automatically for your body to make these movements, it's not going to be useful.
Then how do you think how do you recommend people, check that their ukemi is useful and, like, nice? Like, they can break the fall when it's unexpected.
Yeah, so I think it's just exposure over time, exposure to that specific stimulus over time. Taking break falls on the crash mat, I think, is one of the most important things somebody can do, right? And
Uh,
in the beginning, yes, we put them through like basic break fall drills. Okay, lie on your
yeah.
back, side to side, squatting, standing. Super easy. I blow right through it. Okay,
Right.
and then I can kind of gauge where they are athletically.
Yeah,
You see what I
yeah.
mean? And then now when we're doing Nayakomi, throws on the crash mats, very, very important, right? When they're being exposed to that first, they're only taking low amplitude, low impact throws like Ochi. And
Now
even then, they're not dropping them.
right, right.
They're literally hooking the leg, sit down, bang, and they're rolling onto their back with the guy holding them up. Okay.
Mhm.
And I hear all the time, I didn't even throw them that hard, you know, and that makes me so angry, right?
So
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That makes you so angry because, hey, this person has never taken these falls before, right?
which is very unnatural.
Unnatural from
It never
standing to
happens.
floor.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
never happens. And if you've never wrestled, if you sit on a desk all day, that's a big fall. A lot of impact. If your
Mhm.
neck isn't strong to be able to like tuck, right? Your head's gonna
Right.
snap back, you're gonna hit your head. There's so much risk and issues that can potentially come with just being thrown in a gentle way,
Mm.
right? So taking those non-coming falls in a very, very slow way, and then slowly, like progressive overload in the gym, you have to add a little bit more, add a little bit more, add a little height, add a little amplitude,
Right.
right? And then all of a sudden you're taking fast Ippon Senagi, Ogochi, Koshiguma, where you're kind of disoriented because it's so
Mm.
fast,
Yeah.
right? You land, bang, and then maybe your knees hit together, or maybe you like land in a funny twisting way. But because you're progressively going, it shouldn't be that fast and
Right.
hard, right? Because the first, so you could correct yourself over time. That's what
I
I mean?
see. Yeah.
Then little by little, no matter how fast the guy goes to that throw, yes, you know it's coming, but you have sort of this proprioception feel, right?
Yeah.
You develop this sensitivity to the stimulus, and then it becomes better. Your throw
Right.
falling becomes better and better and better. And now all of a sudden it becomes automated.
So it has to be,
Yeah.
you have to break down ukemi into very like small steps of progression, and then
Somewhat. I don't think you
yeah.
have to explicitly show it that way, but
Uh-huh.
that's just how it is, right? And I'm always saying, like, all right, guys, we're going to do Kemi. We blow right through it. Guy
Yeah.
can't really do it from squatting. All right, you just watch for now, and we'll let you in the next time, right?
I
And they're
see.
watching, and then sometimes you need a supporter. Sometimes you get these guys who are really unathletic and they have really weak necks. Like, all right, guy, hey, can you spot him?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We
I
blow
see.
right through it, and then when we get to Nagekomi, right, they're taking these low impact throws, and
Crash
it's like,
mat. Yeah.
yes. And now what I could say, like, hey, that guy has 2 stripes on his white belt. You could throw him a little bit harder. Hey, I know Carlos is a great
Mm,
athlete. He's a white belt, but he's not really a white belt, right? He's a great athlete. He's been doing grappling for a long time.
right.
You could throw him with whatever you want
It's
because I
more
trust this. Yeah.
tailored to like personal approach you're taking. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't scale this way. I always talk about scaling and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
running a dojo and the business side of things. If there's 25 guys, 30 guys in a room, fine. You just kind of know where everybody is,
Yeah.
right? Based on like what you saw them do, like how they're doing the thing, right? How, whether or not they're in shape or like they look like they're coordinated, you couldn't tell. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But if you have a dojo that has 300 students and there's
Yeah.
a morning class and a night class and a day, all these different people running around in it, it's very difficult to like have that sort of a standard, right? Because you
Right.
can't scale that way. You can't know everybody, you
Right.
know? So there becomes a little bit of a challenge, but I assume 90% of the people who are listening to this belong in small judo dojos,
Mhm.
or they belong to jujitsu dojos who are equally as small. If not, they're at a mega dojo that has a judo program, which is going to have a very
Probably
small
small.
population
Yeah.
of people, right?
Yeah.
So this advice kind of fits, I think, everybody who listening on this, that's just
I
my
see.
like, you know,
So okay. So that is the first step, the fundamental ukemi, good ukemi.
yeah.
And what's the next thing you look for in terms
I
of
think just making
progression?
the shape of the throw, right? That's a
Mhm.
very important one. If you can't make the shape of the throw, that's not that good, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to do it
So
on a cooperating partner.
uchikomis,
Yeah. And the biggest issue is people
nagekomis.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, they do lots of one-to-one break falls, and then people show them a technique. It's like, okay, go try it on each other. There's a
Mhm.
huge gap between that and actually taking someone down that's also trying to take it out,
Right. Right.
right? Not only are they trying to take you down, they're trying to resist throws that you're doing. So there's
Yeah.
a huge gap, right?
Mhm.
From when you learn how to break fall, learn how to do a couple throws to be able to do it in randori.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big,
That's yeah.
big gap. You know what I mean? So I think the first marker is if you're capable of making the shape of the throw on a cooperative partner, whether it's an uchikomi, nagekomi, or 3-person uchikomi, then you can sort of move on to chaining one or two of those techniques. Right?
Right.
Now we're talking about misdirection when you're faking one way, going the other way, right? Fake sasai going osoto, fake turn throw going tanyatoshi, right? That's a
Mhm.
misdirection. Or going for a fake turn throw, tanyatoshi, he steps out, coming back for an osoto.
Right.
That's a 3-step movement, right? And to be able to do that without wasting steps, without falling over, right? Also with proper weight distribution, where you're not just supporting your weight, but you're putting your weight on the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're going Osoto, you're not standing upright, right? You're leaning into the other person. The other person has to support your weight, body weight,
Yeah.
okay? Which requires you to keep your balance first and foremost, and then keep your balance on someone else who's also resisting,
Yeah.
right? So being able to do that is first and foremost. If you can't do that, I don't think you should be able to do free randori. You could
Right.
have some, right? But it's not going to be a good indicator of like you getting better or you doing this or that. Because a lot of what you're going to be able to get is someone falling for you or you're getting lucky.
Mhm.
You get like 2 yellow belts scrapping and then you take someone down. Some of that stuff is luck. You know what
Or
I
get
mean?
hurt, I guess.
Or get
Yeah.
injured and the risk becomes
Yeah.
really high.
Yeah.
So I think those fundamentals are very, very important, right? To be
Mhm.
able to do that. And then you want to go into looking at position, recognizing good position, recognizing bad position,
Mm.
recognizing when you're in trouble, right?
Mhm.
Recognizing when you should be opening up and closing distance.
Yeah.
Those are some fundamentals too of positioning, right? And now you sort of have the ability to kind of enter into like a 30%, 40% speed randori, which will yield you good returns on that, right? Because
Mm.
now you sufficiently prepared for this. You have good
Right.
fundamentals now.
So you just covered a lot, but let's kind of step back and go one by one. So
Yeah.
you first mentioned you're making the shape of the throw, just learning how to throw through uchikomis and nagekomis. I mean, I think that's everybody understands that. But now to make it more realistic, you chain them up like also into sasai or whatever, right? And then So in that case, if you go through these things, you might have this problem of taking too long to get to the fun part, I guess, right? With
Yeah.
randori, because yes, you should be. These things will help in the long run, but some people may feel that this is like we're taking way too long. Like, oh, I want to go in, I want to go in.
Yeah.
So I guess these are landmarks, but how do you keep people engaged at each landmark
That's a very good
as you
question.
as you get closer to the ultimate goal of doing full throttle randori? Yeah,
Randori is fun for most people who know what they're doing,
yeah,
and they're conditioned, right? The guys at the top are like, oh, Randori is the best. I don't want to do
yeah.
anything but Randori. A lot of these people who are walking in that are new, they don't know what Randori is.
Right, right.
So a lot of these guys are like, hey, when do I get to do that? It's like, yeah, you can do that. When we can trust that you could keep yourself safe and you keep others safe. And then you learn all these different things. And just kind of how I laid out all these fundamental progressions, if I have the time and if I feel like it, I'll explain that to them,
Mm.
you know, but in the meantime, right, when you have a very, very charismatic leader like myself in front of the room, you can keep them engaged because it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting,
So
right?
each milestone can be interesting. I mean, like, oh,
Oh,
just
it's
doing
very
making the
interesting.
shape or like, chain
Yeah.
techniques. You can make them
Yeah.
all interesting.
And I think it's more interesting to do it that way as opposed to like, here's Osoto, here's Tayo, here's inside
Right.
chip, go try it. None of this shit works. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like, okay, why doesn't it work? You know what I mean?
yeah.
50-50, guys stiff arming, it's not going to work.
Right, right.
Okay, so now we're going to game position, pull the head down, fakes the side, then go to Soto. Like now they're trying to memorize these steps,
Yeah.
right? And it's not going to help
That's
them
not gonna
either.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like you got to be like, all right, listen, this is the game, right? These are the fundamentals. You have to make the shape of the throw. You have to be athletic and fast because if you show that you're coming, they're going to see it coming.
Hmm.
Like if you telegraph it, right?
Right.
So fundamental positional understanding and fundamental ideas of like setting it up and such and making, we talk about misdirections and combinations. You have to be able to
Yeah.
make the shapes of those things or you can't do them.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do it on a crash mat. Bang. Can't freaking do it. Right.
Right.
So you make that part interesting, and then like, okay, why can I not go Ochi or Soto? And a lot of things is like this, recognizing as a good coach why it's not working. You see a lot of guys when they go for a Soto, they rock back onto the heels and the toes come up off the ground. That means
Yeah.
your weight's going backwards. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of these coaches who don't know what they're talking about be like, oh, more Kazushi, more Kazushi. Oh, point your toes, point your toes. They're giving advice that has nothing to do with anything
Mm.
because they heard it so many times from their other coach say shit like this.
Yeah.
Right. I hear this all the time, like, right first, left, cross grip, cross grip. It's like, why would you tell that guy to do cross grip? It makes no sense.
What do you mean by
Yeah.
cross grip in this case?
No, I
Just
mean,
curious.
this is a constant thing. Like he's having a
Right.
hard time putting his right hand on the collar, right
Uh,
versus left, because they're
yeah.
fighting for that first lapel. He can't get it, so he goes cross grip. But it's like sometimes,
Oh,
yeah,
it's the
it's like
same side
okay,
grip. Okay.
but it's like, and then that never. It's one of
The
those
person
advice.
doesn't even know how to play off cross grip or the cross grip. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like it's not. There's other things that should be taken into account. Like I said, if you're going for Sanagi and you
Yeah.
rock him back on your heels and you see the toes come up,
Yeah.
it could be a Kazushi issue. But most of the time it's like your weight's shifting backwards. Like,
Yeah.
could it be? Yes, you pull more initially. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? So it's like
Right. Right.
giving them the right advice at that time. That's the most important thing,
Right. I see.
Yeah, I'm kind of rambling now.
So it's ukemi, then learning the basics of the throws on cooperating partners,
Yeah.
and then you mentioned just learning how to essentially read the game in a way, like push and pull, like managing the distance and stuff, and grip fighting. I guess you would you say that's the next landmark
Yeah, grip fighting,
milestone?
I always thought like teach it early,
Oh,
but
okay.
now I'm a little bit more like, okay, let's push it back a little bit because you don't want guys who just come in and grip fighting. And there's more room for error, right? Like you poke at someone in the eye.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult to coordinate this stuff. But I like teaching from 50-50 now. Just like start locking up 50-50 and then gaining
Oh,
position
okay.
because it's more understandable, right? It's a
Yeah.
spectrum. Right? My hand goes up, my hand goes up the collar. Your hand slides down my collar. Right now, I have a little bit more advantage.
Mm.
I could do a little bit more now. If it goes all the way to the back of the collar, I could pull your head down. You can't pull my head down. and then reverse it. It's like, oh shit, I'm losing. So now, like, it's much easier to show the conceptual side of like winning and losing position, right versus right, especially.
Mm,
So I start there as opposed to like go like this, go like this, go like that, go like that, because this is what you want to look at dominant position. And like, what?
too
As a
complicated. Yeah.
right versus right, my hand higher than your hand in the
Yeah.
collars, right? And then look at our body size,
Yeah.
more exaggerated to compensate for that. Do you not see how this is a good position for me? And they feel it.
Mm,
So it's like, get there. Recognize that you're losing here. You got to get there, right? As
yeah.
opposed to like going through all these sequences of dripping. Like, it's too fast to like talk yourself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right. At this point, I think what you were saying was that a person would reach that point where they could go 30% randori
Yeah.
when they're like working on grip fighting and then distance management and stuff.
Mm-mm.
What does that mean? 30% randori? Like, uh, do you have them go with advanced belts so that it's
Yeah.
safer, or?
So this is the stuff that I would recommend everybody who's on a dojo.
Mhm.
You need a couple of higher belts that you could trust,
Yeah.
right? That they're not going to bomb them, that there's not going to have any ego involved. They're going to let the beginners work, right? And, you don't want those guys who are going to be like coaching them during the round, like taking up all their time.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. No, we don't need any of that. Just shut up and let the guy work, right?
Yeah.
And give concise one or two little bits. Oh, you're doing great here. All right, yeah. And then just kind of let them be. Maybe
Mhm.
take one or two falls, maybe throw them once or twice, like gently.
Right.
That's it. That's the best round for these guys. They're
Yeah.
keeping it close. That's it. They're keeping it close, let them work. You know what I mean? And then
That's gonna be tiring for them too anyway already,
it's
right?
tiring. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, you outgrip them, 60% of the time,
Yeah.
right? Then you could shut them down and control them. You let them outgrip you, like
Mhm.
gain position on you so they can work a little bit. And then letting them understand, like, hey, do you remember that time when I had your head here? You
Mhm.
went for a Soto? Very easy to counter, right? Maybe you let them enter and then counter once, and that's your one takedown for the session.
Yeah.
So you can be like, hey, you went for a Soto from losing position. That's why you got counted there. Right? There's reason behind that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then you have that dialogue. That's great. You have someone that knows it, that's interested, who's curious. There's two smart people. You can have a dialogue about what happened, right? I noticed when you were winning position, you were hesitant. You didn't
Mm.
attack, right? When you're in losing position, you were also hesitant. And so when you're winning, you have to start unloading. You have to attack. It's okay if you get countered because you're doing the right thing. You're making the right moves.
And I think
You know?
at this point, once a person reaches this milestone, it actually goes, it becomes like a two-way thing,
Yes.
where I think the
Yeah.
person now, because they see they're exposed to so many different stimuli in randori, they start asking questions. I think at this point they start developing their own games,
Yes.
right? And then,
And this is the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes, you get beginners saying like, what am I doing wrong?
yeah.
It's like you're a million
There's
things.
so many things. Yeah,
Yeah. And even if I tell you, you're not going to be able to recognize some of these things because you're going to make 9 other mistakes at the same time.
yeah,
So in the beginning, it's just gaining that experience of being out there
yeah,
with someone that's not going to bomb you. Because if you're constantly in fear of getting taken down, you're not going to be able to work stuff. You're not going to be able to try new things,
right,
right? It's like that, when you're in school and there's people bullying you, like you're not going to be able to be in a very conducive learning environment.
yeah. Because you're constantly worried about getting
Yeah.
bullied. Yeah,
It's like, hey, the x equals 4. And it's like, oh, it's fucking retard. Said x equals 4. It's actually 7. Blah.
yeah,
Now all of a sudden you're too afraid to like ask questions and answer the thing. Now it's not a good learning environment for you anymore,
right,
right?
right,
So same in judo, man. It's like you have to kind of take out the risk of like getting bombed, and people will say like, oh, it's part of getting thrown, it's part of doing judo, but it's not necessary in the beginning phases
right.
that these guys are getting bombed.
Yeah,
They should be getting bombed. They should be, having their ego stroked and be like, hey, you're doing great. So you keep them for longer so they get better faster.
yeah,
Keep them for longer, keep them in the sport as long as you possibly can. So they're going to reap the benefits. And then when they're higher belt, now all of a sudden they're green belts and they've been guided by you properly. Now you can slam them and it's fine. They'll get right back to their feet and be like, yeah, you got me. I'm coming after you now. So now you have a good training partner,
yeah.
you know?
That's an important point. Like you should see them as
Yeah.
future training partners.
Yes.
Like,
Every higher belt needs to groom the next generation.
yeah.
That sounds kind of bad, but like,
Yeah,
no, but there's like a sort of a grooming thing happening, right? It's
yeah,
like That sounds really weird and bad to say, like,
No, it's
martial
just
arts
like
stuff.
I would
It's
say
like
maybe the better phrasing would be like
mentor.
grow the mentor and grow the
Yeah.
next generation. I mean, it has to sustain itself. The dojo has to sustain itself like
Yep.
by growing the next generation. Otherwise, it's gonna you know go away, right?
Yeah, dude,
A
it's
lot
like
of
everything. Yeah, look at
yeah
academia, right? You
yeah
get the professors, and then the people who are, the master's degree, the PhD candidates, and you have the TAs, and you have all these
yeah
people working essentially for free underneath them, right?
yeah
Aren't you sucking on the mother teat of a PhD professor right now?
exactly yeah
Right? You are,
yeah because
right?
I'm
And you're
like
doing
yeah
free
we're
work. You're doing free
yeah
work.
almost free work. Yep, it's the
Yeah.
cheapest labor you can get. Very highly
Cheapest labor you can
educated,
get,
very cheap.
and yeah, and you're contributing to that. And then the guy that comes in next year that's beneath you, you're gonna make him do all the grunt work. And then maybe when you're a professor, you're gonna be like stringing along these young guys who are gonna be emailing you
uh,
like, "Hey, I would love to be in your program, and I'm a candidate." And then maybe you throw them a bone and put their name at the back of the freaking research paper, right?
yeah,
Maybe
that's in the middle usually. The
in the
first
middle.
author and the last author is the professor usually in my field, and the first author is the main person, and then all the
Really, I didn't
rest
know
go
that.
in the middle. Yeah. Well, it depends
Interesting.
on the field, but my field, yeah. So the first is the one that did all the work, most of the work. The last
Yeah.
is the one that funded the thing usually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like that's just how it is, and I think there's a place for that, and there's also a place for two intermediates training,
Yeah.
and you could do little games, grip fighting, start
Yeah.
50-50 and game position, right? You could only do size and whatever. You could enter but not finish the throws, right? Go 40%, go 50%. As soon as they increase it and kind of, one up each other and they start escalating, okay, stop. You guys are no good anymore. I can't trust you guys to do randori. Sorry.
Yeah.
We need it at this intensity to keep you guys safe. If you guys want to train each other in sort of this real life context, you can't be doing this, right? Don't bomb each other. Don't land on each other. Make sort of like these rules for specifically for them. And that's a
And
great way to do randori. I do this to dojo, you
yeah,
see
and
it.
then you mentioned those black belts that you can trust. They can also not only can they go actually do randori with these people, they can also watch them and make sure they don't do anything dangerous, right?
Yeah.
While
Yeah.
because you can't watch everyone,
No, I can't do
yeah.
it.
So that's another thing. So that's another landmark where you're like easing into randori, um, and then you can slowly increase the intensity. So at this point, I guess the next would be full on randori, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And then,
and
even when you're able to do randori, right? And I
yeah,
assume a lot of these guys are asking questions from the standpoint like, I'm already doing randori. How do I
yeah,
know I'm getting better?
yeah,
It's very, very difficult to know that you're getting better because you're fighting the same guys over and over. They're getting better too.
yeah,
So if you're getting better, they're getting better. You're kind of like the rising tide that, raises all
right.
boats, right? Everyone's getting better at the same time. It's very, very difficult to know. That's one
Mm,
of the most frustrating things about judo.
mm.
You know what I mean?
So how can we check? Like, do you recommend going to tournaments or another
I hate
judo or
recommending
another
tournaments,
dojo?
you know, because there's such a gap in skill at every
Yeah,
level, and you never know who you're going to get. And they could be even more discouraging. If the guy's like, oh, am I getting better? Am I getting better? That person's kind of worried about their progression.
yeah,
And this is kind of like religion almost, right? Where you have to have faith.
yeah. In your
And you have to
sensei.
kind of believe in yourself, not your sensei. You got to
Okay.
believe in yourself,
That you are
right?
getting better. Yeah,
Yes. And then if you're putting in the time, you're working really hard and you're spending time after practice thinking about it and then
uh,
trying to gain knowledge. Knowledge gain is the most important thing because
yeah,
sometimes you're getting caught with stuff, maybe you're just not recognizing it, right?
yeah.
So being able to recognize it, oh, this person's looking for that based on this thing, right?
Mm,
Whatever it is, X, Y, and Z, you make your assumptions, right? Now, little by little, you are going to get better no matter what. If you're spending time doing it, if you're thoughtful and you're a smart, intelligent human being, you
mm.
have a good baseline athleticism, you're going to get better with time,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So it's a battle with yourself, really. It's like, don't get frustrated, get fascinated. Martin Rooney used to say it to me all the time.
yeah.
And, you got to just have faith, really, and just kind of like keep plugging
Keep
away,
playing. Yeah,
and those belt markers, the people chasing the belts, they kind of have it the hardest because they assume their skill is going to catch up to their belt color. You know what I mean?
uh,
There's not, they're not the same thing. Just because you're a certain belt doesn't mean you're very good.
Yeah.
There's black belts and there's fucking black belts. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, but you know this, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, the pursuit really has to be like information, knowledge, skill, ability to execute this stuff under pressure and being able to read your opponent, being able to recognize position, setting things up, setting traps. You know what I mean? Uchimata Harai, that's an
Yeah.
easy one, right? That's a thing that everyone does.
Yeah.
Uchimata Tayatoshi, fighting position, Koji, cut the head, gaining, transition Newaza, good Newaza finishes. All this stuff, defending counters, all this stuff, it just comes with time. It really does.
So
And just
you
because you're a black
yeah,
belt doesn't mean you could do all this stuff. I know
right.
black belts that have like 2 throws and they're not very good. You
Yeah.
gotta ask them something, they don't know anything,
Uh,
That's a bad black belt right there.
I
Maybe
see.
not a bad black belt, but he's not a great black belt.
I see. So you're coming more. So you mentioned a lot of intrinsic motivations, I guess, like expanding the horizon of your knowledge and stuff. But what if
Yeah.
someone comes up to you and say, "Hey, I get what you're saying, Shintaro, but I just need some extrinsic motivation." Like,
Man,
then
that I'll tell you, man, there's guys like that in the room,
yeah,
and it's the coach's job to recognize those guys sometimes and be
yeah,
like, hey, man, you're doing great. And
uh,
sometimes that's all they need. They don't really need to like,
go to the tournaments and stuff. No,
no, they just want the validation from the guy in the room.
uh,
There's a natural hierarchy in the dojo, and the guy with the highest belt generally is the leader of the room,
yeah,
generally,
yeah,
right? So it's natural for any human being to want validation, or what's the other word? Approval from that
yeah.
person. You know what I mean? You go to a bar, right? The hottest girl in the room, you want approval from that girl, right? You're trying to get that person's attention
Yeah.
somehow, right? Whether it's like by flexing your muscles or like,
Uh,
making a laugh, whatever. Any
yeah,
field, right?
yeah,
You're in a classroom, right? There's a guy in the front who's a PhD, who's a professor. You're asking questions like you want that person's approval.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Sure, yeah,
sometimes it's not really about their learning or whatever it is. Sometimes those people who need that extrinsic motivation, it's the coach recognizing them and say, hey, man, you're doing great.
mm.
You're doing good. Keep it up. Right?
So
Maybe that's all it takes.
you really don't think competing is part of the landmark or progression
Not,
or fundamentals?
it is and it isn't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I'll give you an example. Gianni went to nationals.
Yeah, yeah. I saw
Last
the
year,
videos. Yeah,
he went 0-1. This year, we've been working very close.
yeah.
He took 7,
Oh,
which isn't
nice.
great.
Yeah.
Which isn't great because I thought he was going to be, I thought he could win it. He's beating the guy who won it, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So, but watching the content of the match and watching everyone else in that division, I thought Gianni's in there. He's in the game. He's in the mix. He could beat these guys.
Yeah,
And it's like, how did you feel, right? Results wise,
yeah.
he did better than last year, but he went in thinking like, hey man, I should
I should
medal.
be winning
We
this.
should
Yeah,
we should be getting a medal here, right?
yeah.
But we didn't. But were we able to see significant improvement from his game last year?
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah,
The stuff he needs to work on, a lot of the stuff he's tightened up, and now this is a little bit of a gap here, right? Where he needs to still kind of do. I don't want to out his game completely, but like
yeah.
it's
Some of the
very,
things he
very
needs to work on.
visible,
Yeah,
right? And we can have a conversation about this. And then we saw that although the results but this is the thing, he could have easily gotten some freak guy first round, went
yeah,
0-1,
yeah, yeah.
right? And then it's like, oh shit, if that was your main way of knowing you made progression, a lot of guys would say, man, I went 0-1 last year, I went 0-1 this year. Who cares if it was the eventual champion? I freaking suck. I made no progress in a year. I'm done. It's so easy to be
Right.
disastrously discouraged, which happens to a lot of guys, happened to me too. I won a world championship,
Yeah.
lost first round. Next year I went to the world championships again, lost first round, but they were
Very
both very good
discouraging, yeah.
guys. It was like
Yeah.
Kropalik and, Huang from Korea or something like this.
Yeah,
So, it's not a good indicator of like my actual skill level,
Mhm.
actual improvement in like walkers and such,
Well, then let me ask you this: how do you keep up with your progression? How do you check your progression
you
personally?
got to go beat up on the older guys. No, not necessarily. How do I keep my progression?
Yeah,
It's tough to say. I'm always trying new things, right?
yeah,
So, like I was into Sumi for a little bit, and then I was doing Tomonage for a little bit, and then trying to be able to hit Tomonage on the green belts, trying to
Yeah.
hit it consistently on brown belts, and then hitting on the black belts, but like putting different layers to it, right? like hiding my attacks, how consistent can I get it? Is it part of a game where it's like I'm showing things and doing this and that, and then being able to hit those throws in practice? It's a good marker for me, right? Because if I rely on my A game, I could generally just beat 95,
everyone, yeah.
99% of guys.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say who could beat me, I don't say that, but like
Eh.
a very small number of judokas can freaking beat me.
Yeah.
And now people are going to be like, oh, what about, right? What about,
So everyone's
right?
gonna come and try to beat you now.
Yeah, but think about the world judo population.
Yeah, it's such a popular sport in the world, around the world.
Dude,
Yeah.
out of hundreds of thousands of people, or maybe even millions, they say they have 1 million judo guys in France. Okay. They say
That's
that.
why, remember what the famous video Khabib said, my brother, judo is just different,
Yeah, dude.
It's a
There's
different,
1 million people
yeah.
in France doing judo. Okay.
Yeah, that's
What percentage of those people can I beat? Probably 99% of them.
yeah.
Majority of them are teenagers and kids and
Not
kids.
Teddy Rinares.
No. Yeah. He's in the 1% of people that I cannot beat from France.
1%. He's more like 1 out of a million. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing, right? Like, okay. So, but what about my Tomonagi game?
Yeah.
Can I beat the best guys in the world with that? No, I cannot. How good is my Newaza? I mean, it's good, but it's not great. So, there's a lot of things I want to work on, a lot of moves I still want to hit. When I hit these moves, I want to be able to integrate it into my game seamlessly.
Mm.
Right. And I want to be able to like move, and I want to be able to do this for Gianni. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy, I'm going against this guy. He's a lefty. He's a tall lefty. He does this, that, this. This is his game. I want to be able to exactly replicate what this kid would do in a randori session with him to prepare him.
To Gianni. For Gianni. Yeah. Oh, I see.
This guy's like a strong right-handed guy who's a drop stand. Like this kid, Issei Barefoot from, he fights 90 at the US, right?
Yeah.
He has a very drop stand game. I want to be able to watch that kid and then the next day be like, Gianni, come. And then
you
mimic
play him. Yeah.
Play by play, every exchange like that kid, right?
That's
as good. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And doing that's a really cool thing, right? But that'll help my athletes, and that makes my judo more interesting, right? Because I'm not playing my own game, but I'm playing someone else's game.
Yeah.
So like that's fun, and that's how I gauge. And then cardio is a factor in it, strength is a factor in it. All these other things are factors in like me feeling like I'm progressing. But I'm always trying to learn something new. I'm always trying to figure new things out when it comes to grappling. It's like this endless puzzle that just like keeps on like torturing you.
Yeah.
It's torture. Really, it's like sickness.
I see. That's a very interesting perspective,
Yeah.
because when we talk about progression, we usually think of from the perspective of beginners going through the motion. But as an accomplished grappler like yourself, progression may look a little different from a lot of people.
But put it this way, man.
yeah.
If someone's like, hey, you have to be lefty now. You could only fight from the outside position against righty. And the only move you can do is Ochi and two-step Uchimata. Go. I'm not going to be able to throw a lot of guys like that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like if I do that, I mean, there's no reason for me to do that ever. Right. But, I could see the perspective of like a beginner, like trying to learn this stuff. It helps me understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just like drilling it and being comfortable, being able to make the shapes of the throws,
That actually
and
makes
feel.
you a better teacher, because you're constantly learning yourself, and you know
Yeah.
what it's like to learn.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
want to do
just a
lefty game
memory.
for a little bit. I want to be able to do lefty, not mirroring the judo that I do to my right, but a specific lefty game that doesn't require like Taio, Uchimata, because that's going to be a whole another bag of stuff for me to learn that. Right.
Yeah.
So like Tomonage Sumi, like a very sacrifice heavy lefty style, will be a very interesting thing for me to start learning and doing. And this is the thing. I can already do this on yellow belts and green belts. Can I throw my brown and black belt at that? No. They'll like counter me, put me to my back. So I have to make sure I do this on a day that there's not a lot of people watching. Because I don't want to get put to my back going for something, and then like everyone's like, oh,
Shintaro exposed.
Yeah, and everyone, that's what, the moment I get taken down, I got taken down by Kevin the other day.
Oh, really? Muhammad?
In front of everybody.
Oh, with what?
Dude, he came out so hard and fasted. We bowed, and I at the moment I looked up, he was in my face running at me, dude.
It got the big kosoto or
Dude, he
something?
threw his hand over the back so hard, bang, right? And then he put his
Uh,
hand on it at the same time. I was like, oh, shoot. And he like shrugged my shoulder in, and I thought a turn throw was coming. So I like
uh,
tried to hip check it, and he
uh.
clipped my feet.
Oh,
And dude, I went straight down to my knees. And then as soon as my knees hit the ground, he freaking bum rushed me and like ran me over like a truck, dude. And
he
then
meant
as I'm going
business.
down, dude, as I'm going down, everyone's like, oh, I hear everyone like freaking clapping like in the dojo. And it was like, it was brutal, dude. It was brutal.
And did you get avenge yourself after?
Yeah, no, I took him down like 5 times after that, but still,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
very difficult. I got scared out. I was like a little
yeah.
bit. I
I
was like, oh
mean,
man, like
he's a
oh shit,
strong guy. Kevin's strong. You know.
yeah.
It,
And that last time I got thrown was like Gianni threw me with a Ochi probably like about like 6 months ago, maybe
nice.
in the dojo. I'm talking about.
Oh, in the dojo in front of everyone.
Yeah. Not so much in between. And you know, it's funny because I tell everyone if you're not getting taken down, you're not really training. You're not taking risks. You're not going
Yeah,
for stuff. You're not putting yourself in bad positions. And it's true, man. I don't want to get taken down in front of everybody, you know.
yeah.
But I should more. I should more try new things, and
Do you
you
do
know.
do you do do you put yourself more out there in, like, for example, BJJ?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm not the head guy there. I'm not
yeah.
I'm just a guy in the room. I'm
Right.
training, and you know, you could pick a corner,
Yeah,
and no one gives a shit what you're doing if you're just one of the guys. You know
yeah.
what I mean? If you're the sensei, you know, everyone's watching you. You know, in jiu-jitsu,
It,
sometimes I'll let guys take singles so I can learn how to defend it a little bit better. And if I'm
okay.
on bottom, I like pull guard and like try work my De La Hiva series. You know, I'm not great at it. You know, if I go with like one of the good black belts, they'll pass me for certain. You
Yeah.
know, so I'll try that. You know, there's no sense me just trying to stay on top the whole time and do pressure stuff because then I won't get good at the bottom. You know,
There's no
so I want to
progression then.
try.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, every time I get put in a position, it's a chance for me to learn a little bit more about that position, right? And so, you know, I'm a little bit more risk averse in my own dojo in front of guys,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I shouldn't be that way, right? Because it should be
It's
a
your
little bit
guy.
more, yeah. And you know, I guess I could kind of like it's clear, right? When I give up takedowns, it's clear,
Yeah.
you know. But like, yeah, now I'm just making excuses. I should probably go for stuff
Well,
more.
I'm not in a position to really say anything about this because I'm very risk averse in that sense. So even when I go to BJJ, I like
Nah,
play that top heavy game because
yeah, you
I
play
know
your
that
own game.
yeah,
Nah, that's nice about
that's
though when you go consistently and you know your dudes, and then you know, hey man, you know, I'm freaking nasty on top. Pull guard today. I'm gonna work on my bottom game, and you can kind of
yeah,
trade positions. And that's always a nice training partner to have because you could try things, try new
right,
things, you know, and no ego involved. That's kind of best kind of training, really.
yeah. I thought about like spending more time with leg locks and stuff, but I guess I never went consistent enough to like
Yeah,
really work on it. You need those practice partners that you can really
that's-
trust, especially with things like leg locks, because
yeah, for
a
sure.
lot of
Yeah,
things
trust
could
is
go
huge.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. All right, that was I think good overview on fundamentals and progression, like what we look for when we progress through judo. I hope you liked it, Levon. And anything else we missed before we
Nope.
close?
You
All
guys
right,
join
cool.
our Patreon, and then you guys could ask unlimited questions.
Yeah, exactly. All right, yeah. Thanks for your support again, Levon, and
Yep.
thanks. Our thanks go out to other supporters, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.